All right, welcome back, Ranger fans and Penguin fans. We got a special crossover edition with Mr. Hunter Hodes of Locked On Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins, of course, just completing a intense 1-0 victory against the New York Rangers in their first of three matchups this season. Hunter, first of all, man, good to see you. It's been a while since we've done a crossover, and congrats on the win here today.
Yeah, it's been almost, I think, a year at this point since these two teams have played. Well, maybe like 10 months or something like that. But it's weird also that it took 50-plus games for these two teams to play for the first time. No idea what was going on with the schedule there. But, yeah, man, it was just a great game. A playoff preview for sure. I think these two teams will probably play each other 9 to 10 more times this year, and it'll probably take years off everyone's lives. But that was just a great hockey game.
Yeah, I mean, that's just par for the course whenever it's Rangers-Penguins, especially in a playoff series. But, I will say this, too. I think you made a great point there about how, it's surprising how long it's taken for these two teams to play each other this season. But in just one afternoon of hockey, man, I feel like this rivalry has already reignited. I'm back into it. I can't wait to see them play each other again, especially since the Rangers came out on the short end here today. But, yeah, man, I mean, just heavyweight matchup today, a lot of physicality, a lot of nastiness after the play. Your thoughts on some of the extracurriculars that we saw in this game here today?
Yeah, I mean, I try myself not to get, too animated during games, obviously. This one, I definitely felt like I was more animated than, other times. I thought overall the officiating was pretty bad for both teams. I didn't like how they handled all those scrums at all. Both for the Rangers and the Penguins. I think both teams got away with a lot of stuff. But, the thing was, I think, when you're not calling penalties early on in the game to set the standard, this is the stuff that happens. And, there was a kind of like a puck battle in the corner, like one of the Rangers players basically laying on the ice, is almost covering the puck. And then, that allows a Penguin player to just, kind of take a liberty. And then you have all the players jumping on top of them. And it's like, well, if the officials could just do their jobs and blow the whistle there, none of that is going to happen. Some of the 4-on-4 stuff, you have one player doing something stupid, then you got the retaliation. I mean, I get you're calling both, but, you also let a lot of other stuff go before then that is saying to these players, okay, I'm just going to take liberties. I'm going to take cheap shots because we can. That's the standard that the refs are setting. Unfortunately, this is the standard that a lot of games are like this, and it's really sad how the state, I think, of NHL officiating has gotten in the year 2022. So, obviously, it's chippy. It's a long, standard rivalry. Just, these teams have hated each other for a long time. It was awesome to see it reignite today. But again, I definitely thought the officials could have done a much better job on both sides because they were just letting a lot of stuff go. And then when other stuff was happening, they were forced to call it, but you should have called the other stuff beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of let the game get out of hand a little bit, and I wanted to actually talk about that one specific play that you mentioned there with it was Dryden Hunt. The puck is in the Pittsburgh zone. It's behind the goal line there, and Hunt's down basically on his stomach, and you've got Pettersson. This is probably as animated as I got all day, and it's the only one where I really had a problem with what somebody did. It's like Pettersson cross-checks him, and he cross-checks him again and again and again. And I tweeted something. I think I said something like, "Oh, I guess the 9th time was the charm there for him to get the penalty," but. Yeah, man, just again, a heated, chippy game. And I think, if it is Rangers-Penguins in the playoffs this year, I think we're all pretty much in for a treat when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, again, these two teams are so much fun to watch. The goaltending battle was awesome. You have two very clear, I think, Vezina Trophy finalists, at least in my opinion. I know one of them has had a better season than the other, though I know the latter obviously got the better of Shesterkin today. But it was just, I don't like a lot of 1-0 games personally. Sometimes, most of the time, I should say they're boring, right? Not today. Scoring chances galore. Great goaltending. Both teams were really, I thought, solid defensively. And, this could have been easily a 4-3 game, 5-4, heck, maybe even, 6-5 with how many great chances both teams had. It was just the goaltending was sensational. And yeah, to your point, that Hunt play, I was surprised that Pettersson was, not called, I think, after the first 3 cross checks, though. I think there was a couple other times. I think there was a blatant missed cross check. I think it was on, I want to say it was Sid that, this was not called. And I stood up and I just put my hands like this, like, okay, I guess, we're just playing, gulag rules out here like they do in Call of Duty and stuff. And yeah, I just did not understand it.
It might have been Dryden Hunt who you're talking about. I remember that it was behind the Ranger net, right? And the cross check from behind. Yeah, so Hunt got away with one, and then I don't know if the refs thought that well, give him a couple free shots at Hunt there, and then they finally called it later. I don't know. But yeah, it was Dryden Hunt that did that.
Yeah, it was just really, and then, there were scrums every 5 seconds. And don't get me wrong, I know a lot of people like that stuff. It's old time hockey, as they like to say, back in the 80s and, the 90s and all that. But, I just, I wish there weren't as many stoppages, because I wish the officials actually did their jobs. And, I'm not someone that usually probably complains about officials too much. I try to, look at the game overall, just, with the players and coaches in mind. But, I thought, it was just really, I think, piss poor in this one for both teams. And every team, I think all the players were getting away with straight up murder, I think, at times.
Yeah, it was nasty. Something else I wanted to ask you about. Obviously, the Penguins had lost 3 in a row coming in, but they've really had a great season after, stumbling a little bit out of the starting blocks. But is there anything that you thought the Penguins did a little bit better in today's game? I mean, obviously, Tristan Jarry was absolutely sensational, but was there anything that they were doing better today that maybe they haven't been doing during this, brief 3-game losing streak?
Yeah, I thought they were defending much better. The first period was a little rough. They were giving up too many, I think, odd man rushes, got off to another slow start. That's been a really big issue for the last week to 2 weeks. Mike Sullivan has, touched on that to the local media after the game. He just hasn't been happy, and rightfully so. They've given up coming into this game. This was, I believe, 2 games in a row that they had given up a goal in basically the opening minute or less. And, they were lucky it wasn't a third in a row with how the Rangers were coming right at them in the first period. Luckily, I think Mike Sullivan must have said something in the intermission. I believe it was around the 8-minute mark in the third period where ESPN put up a graphic, and they said the Rangers had only had 5 shots since the first period. The Penguins were just doing a really nice job of taking away the shooting lanes. I thought they were penalty killing really well in that. And, that's been an area that I think has regressed a little bit because Teddy Bluger has been banged up for the last month. He is their best penalty killer. He's so good also at even strength. And, he takes away, at least, I think, a quarter of the ice at least. And to not have him there has been a much bigger deal than some people have thought it would be. But I thought the Penguins did a really nice job on the PK against one of the best power plays in the league. Let's be real. That's a main reason, I think, why the Rangers have had a lot of success this season is because, Kreider's been lethal. Adam Fox is amazing at the point. You have Zibanejad, Panarin. I mean, it's a nasty unit. But again, Jarry also made some great saves. But, to sum it all up, I thought the Penguins, they did a really nice job defensively. And, I was looking at natural stat trick, before we started recording, John. Penguins only gave up 2 high danger chances to the Rangers in the final 40 minutes. That a lot of times that's going to win you games. It did them today. And, that just goes to show that, when Mike Sullivan has his players humming, they're a very hard team to beat defensively. They've gone away from that at times a lot lately. But today, this was the blueprint for the Penguins' success, defending wise.
It's funny you mentioned that, and that's definitely something that I picked up on as well. I thought the Penguins defended very, very well down the stretch here. But, the Penguins, Malkin gets the power play goal with about 15 minutes to go. And, being a Ranger fan this year, the Rangers' best period has been the third period, which is great. It's a sign of a good team, a team that's maturing. And, there's a little part of me, obviously you don't want to give up the goal there, but I'm almost starting to think like, oh, man, we got him right where we want him. We're going to come back just like we always do. But I got to be honest, I was a little bit disappointed. And part of this is, to the Penguins' credit. But the Rangers really didn't have a lot of grade A scoring chances down the stretch. There was 1 or 2 instances. Mika Zibanejad got a couple of chances at the very end. And Hunter, I think we can break down those plays in just a second. But first, got to let everybody know about Built Bar. Today's episode of Locked On Rangers and Locked On Penguins is brought to you by Built Bar. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, Puffs included, 100% real chocolate. Low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They are better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. At Built Bar, they are all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then they figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how they do it, but they pull it off every single time. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. And we just want to thank everybody for making Locked On Rangers and Locked On Penguins your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. And Hunter, just a second ago, I alluded to the final minute or so of this game. Mika Zibanejad getting a couple of chances. He made a move around the defenseman, Tristan Jarry, with yet another great pad save. And then with about 10 seconds left, had a one-timer. Were you nervous on either of those plays there with Mika Zibanejad, looking for the equalizer there?
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was definitely, again, there aren't many times where, I'll stand up and watch, just because it's the beginning of the season and all that. I actually stood up, started, put my hands on my head a little bit, just because it felt like the playoffs. I kind of want May to just come at this point. We're 2 months away from these. And, they got some pretty good chances there at the end. Like you alluded to, that chance of Zibanejad. He kind of walked Marino a little bit. Wasn't his finest moment of the season. I thought Marino at times was good today. That one, he wasn't. Jarry had made a massive pad save. And then the Rangers were able to cycle it around a little bit, get a couple more chances. I was definitely pretty nervous. I thought the Rangers could have fired a little more at the net there. I don't think they were, wasting time, but I think they should have had more scoring chances than they did. I know, credit to the Penguins for their 6-on-5 defense. That was a problem earlier on in the season. They've rectified that and then some since, so credit to them there. But I still think the Rangers could have been a bit better there with their offensive zone pressure.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't want to be that guy that's just yelling shoot, shoot, shoot the entire time.
I hate those fans. I can't.
Yeah, but time's running out here. We've had a tough time beating this guy. We got to get this puck toward the net and give ourselves a chance here. They did have one last great chance. You mentioned the Mika play where he went around Marino there, but there was a play. And I will say this, as a Ranger fan, whether it's me or anybody else, Mika has been absolutely lethal from that spot on the left faceoff circle there, and they especially on the one-timer. And with 10 seconds, getting a one-timer opportunity to Mika Zibanejad, you got to love that. But, man, I got to give all the props in the world to Jarry. He kind of lifted his arm there. I think it was his blocker arm, and just got a piece of it with his shoulder there. Against a lesser goalie and somebody who's not on top of his game, that's going to be a goal, believe me. So all the credit in the world to Jarry on that play there.
Yeah, that was a wicked shot. And, to your point about Tristan, I really think a national audience finally got to see how good this guy has been this year. I know the Penguins have not been on national TV a lot this year. And, I don't think a lot of teams have at times. It's a different deal with NBC, TNT and ESPN. They'll showcase, every team around the league, not just the same 5 or 6 that NBC did, right? But again, I really think, the national audience just got to see what, the Penguins fans and, especially me who covers the team for this podcast has seen, and that, he's been one of the 5 to 10 best goaltenders in hockey this year. And he deserves to be in contention to be a Vezina finalist. I mean, the amount of saves that he was making throughout that contest, I was like, okay, I've probably never seen him make those kind of saves coming into this year. Now they just look so routine for him. And, credit to Andy Chiodo for how well he's worked with him. He's much more confident in the net this year. He's much more aggressive, challenging shooters like he was tonight. There were multiple, again, odd man opportunities that Tristan was like, you know what, try to beat me. And he just made save after save after save. And he saved their butts, I thought, in the first period. And honestly, the Penguin skaters probably needed to buy them 10 steak dinners after that effort.
Yeah, no, he was fantastic. And, I was actually going to ask you at some point during this recording here if, there is a belief in Tristan Jarry. Obviously, he was an all-star this year. He's having a great season. But I was going to ask, is there a belief that this dude can be a Stanley Cup winning goalie and he can take the Penguins, deep into the playoffs and help them make another run? But I think I've already got my answer. I mean, it sounds like you guys are pretty confident in him. Is that true?
Yeah, I think the confidence builds and builds every day. My listeners are probably getting tired of me saying this. You don't write a redemption story, over a few months. You got to prove it in the playoffs. That's where he screwed up last year. We'll really know how good he is and if those demons are gone once he suits up for game 1. But right now, I think I and a lot of the fans and even the media that cover the team, he just has this confidence and this swagger about him that, none of us have ever seen before. And he's playing his butt off night in, night out, saves them all the time. He was fantastic today. And yeah, I'm definitely really confident in him. Though, John, I got to say, got to finally watch Igor Shesterkin for a full 60 minutes. I tweeted this during the game. It is crazy how you can have the best goaltender of the generation in Henrik Lundqvist. He retires, and then his clone basically comes into the net and is like, okay, I'm basically just Hank 2.0. And the saves that he made today, I was like, I mean, I'm getting literally Hank vibes because he was just stealing the show. And, I know he's basically done that all year. I've looked at the numbers. He's number one in goals saved above expected. He's basically playing at a 940 pace. How confident are you in him moving forward that he can keep this up?
I mean, I have all the confidence in the world in him. And I was very bullish on him even before he ever made his NHL debut because, Hunter, if you go back and you check out some of the stats that he put up, both in the AHL and in the KHL, and I realize, that's a step down from the NHL. It's not the same. His numbers are just video game like. I mean, they just defy all expectation. The KHL, he had a goals against average that was barely above 1. And again, I realize he's not going to be able to do that in the NHL. No goalie that's ever lived is going to be able to do that in the NHL. But somebody that's putting up that kind of numbers there, I don't care what kind of hockey it is or what level it is, that's extraordinarily impressive. And it's going to translate to success in the NHL. The Rangers themselves kind of talked him up. They were very high on him. And man, he is not disappointed. I mean, I kind of see how he missed the All-Star game. I don't really think I agree with it. The Rangers had 3 other people that were voted in. Obviously, your guy made it, and Freddie Anderson made it, and they're having fantastic seasons too. There's some seriously good goalies in this division. But yeah, I mean, him not making the All-Star game, and I think he's got to be the front runner for the Vezina. And I wouldn't be stunned if he at least got a couple of votes for the Hart. I mean, everybody wants to talk about how, oh man, Igor carries the Rangers, and the Rangers aren't such a good team 5v5. Well, if that's all true, then I mean, we got to give some props to this goalie here, and he's got to at least get some consideration. I don't know that he'll win it, but I think the debate at least should probably be had.
Speaking of that, there were some in the national media on Saturday saying, hey, his Hart Trophy campaign should start today. And he was that good. I was texting with my buddy, who is a Rangers fan. Shout out to Nick Zararis, who I had on the pod on Friday. And, he basically said, next goal wins because both goalies were sensational today, and speaking of that basically did happen with Evgeni Malkin getting the power play goal. But yeah, man, I mean, I know the Rangers don't have good 5v5 numbers. Their expected goals for and expected goals against are bottom third of the league. Their goaltender has obviously been awesome this year. I did want to ask John, you're just watching this game. Are you concerned with those numbers being in the bottom third of the league? Because, I know how good your top line is. I know how good Artemi Panarin is. Adam Fox, I think, is the best defenseman in the league. He's going to be one of the top, if not the top defenseman in the league for the next decade. Are you concerned at all about, the bottom half of the lineup or anything for the second half of the year going into the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's slight concern. And I was actually, a listener sent me an email and they asked me some kind of question about 2014 and, the Ranger team that went to the finals. I don't remember exactly how we got to talking about this, but, I was, I made the point that it's a very differently constructed roster right now than it was back in 2014. Because if you look at that 2014 squad, the team that went to the finals, it almost was like an entire roster of second-line players. They didn't necessarily had that 1 or 2 big-time superstars other than Henrik Lundqvist, obviously. But as far as the forwards are concerned, didn't really have those superstar players, but they had depth. It felt like, they could roll all 4 lines and anybody could get you on any given night. And this team is a lot different because you see, they've got superstars like Mika Zibanejad, Artemi Panarin. You mentioned Adam Fox. I would throw Chris Kreider into that, especially this season. But then you look at, their third line, and they don't really get much of anything out of their third line. Mm-hmm. And the fourth line, they play like fourth liners. You don't really expect them to score. They got a goal the other night against the Capitals, which is cool to see. But, they do bring some value in terms of just going out there and hitting and setting a physical tone. I thought, certainly Ryan Reeves was very noticeable in this game here today. Yeah. But yeah, I would like to see them, add a depth piece or two, specifically at right wing near the trade deadline. Right wing is a position where they are really hurting. I mean, Alexis Lafreniere is playing right wing now. He's naturally a left winger. Capo Caco is going to be out for, close to at least a month more at this point. And, Dryden Hunt's playing on the second line. And, Hunt's a hardworking player, but is he a top 6 forward and somebody that can best take advantage of playing with Artemi Panarin the way that a lot of other guys could? I would say no. So that's an area where they need to improve. I could see them adding a couple of depth pieces. And, Hunter, I definitely want to ask you about the Penguins' potential approach at the trade deadline, and we'll get to that in just a second. But first, let's let everybody know about BetOnline.net. Football might be over for this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props, to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the #1 spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. And Hunter, as I mentioned just a second ago, man, obviously, the trade deadline is coming up. And, you look at the Eastern Conference, it's kind of crazy because the 8 teams in playoff position have a good amount of separation from the other 8 teams.
Basically,
you never know what can happen. What's that?
It's basically locked up almost.
Yeah, I always stop just a little bit short of saying that just because you never know. One team slumps and one team catches fire. It could maybe change. But, yeah, I think these might be the 8 teams. I think you might be right about that. And, I'm just wondering, man, we've seen the Penguins be aggressive at the trade deadline in years past. And obviously Crosby and Malkin getting into their mid-30s. I mean, could you see them full on pushing the chips in? Let's go out and get some big-time impact players. I mean, what do you think the strategy is going to be for them?
Yeah, I think they should. And, I know it's against Ron Hextall's DNA to make a big splash. Jim Rutherford, he used to do that all the time because that's who he is. He loved making trades. Ron, he's literally the antithesis of Jim Rutherford. He's very patient. He's not going to make a panic move or, we won this game, I'm just going to go out and make a trade. He's just going to assess everything, he just wants to see where the team is at. And I think if they're going to make a move, it's probably going to be right before the deadline. I've seen some fans say, well, they need to go out and get a defenseman. See, I disagree with that because, my good buddy Danny Shirey of DK Pittsburgh Sports, Mike Matheson was out today. He'll be week to week. Mark Friedman stepped in. And, I'm of the opinion that P.O. Joseph, of course, should get some more playing time. They got to see where he's at. He's played really well down in Wilkes-Barre. Mark Friedman comes in. He played almost 12 minutes at 5v5. He has 14 shot attempts, 4-1 against, 98% of the expected goals. They're fine defensively. It's at the forward spot that I really think they could use another body. Kasperi Kapanen has been on an island this year. This is not the same player that we all saw last year. And, we kind of have this thing on, social media and other places where, he'll always come into the zone and, we'll say, oh, $5, he does this. He basically will come in, stop, kind of curl back, drop the puck off, and then it basically goes the other way. He's not using his speed to the advantage, and we're like, oh, well, we just lost $5 more because he just continues to stink up the joint. So I think they need another top 6 winger for Evgeni Malkin's line. I love what Sid's line can do. Danton Heinen and Evgeni Malkin have been really good in a short sample this year, but they keep cycling out that right winger for his line. And if they can go out and maybe get, Brock Besser, Connor Garland, JT Miller, if Dallas falls off, Joe Pavelski or something like that, I really think that would strengthen the team. And, I know some people will say, well, the future this, the future that. You're trying to get your 4th one and, again, be the best dynasty of this era. I don't really care about a first round pick. We'll have to see if Ron does. And I know Brian Burke has said we'd like to keep it, but at the end of the day, that's also just GM speak. They're going to do what they think is best for the team. I think that's the main thing they need to go and get. And of course, a backup for Tristan. He can't play every game down the stretch. Casey DeSmith has not been good enough. So if they can go out and get a veteran to play behind him for, maybe a mid-round pick or something like that, I think this team would be cooking, really, really cooking in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think at a certain point, if you're a member of the Penguins front office, I mean, specifically the GM, but, really the whole organization, you owe it to these guys. These guys have gotten you. There's players that have been there for all 3 cups. I mean, forget about building for the future. You figure that out, in the future, that this isn't, a team of aging veterans that's never going to, possibly be able to win you a Stanley Cup. They've already got 3, and maybe they can get you another one if you get them a couple pieces at the deadline.
Yeah, for sure. I don't really know what they're going to do. They may think, well, the answers are in-house, blah, 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 blah. But, I know what they should do. It's just a matter of, will they actually go out and do it? Last year they went out and got Jeff Carter at the deadline. Ron Hextall said at the time, we owe it to these players because, they've earned this acquisition. Well, I feel like they've earned an acquisition at this point in the season. They're second in the division. They're still kind of making a push for first. I know Carolina is red hot lately. They also have a few games in hand on the Penguins. I know the Rangers have 2 in hand on them, if I'm not mistaken. But I still think Hextall has to owe it to these guys and give them, at least one more big cup run. Malkin and Letang are up after this year. I think Malkin's definitely going to come back. Letang, I think he will, but it's not going to be as easy just because of how good he's been. But, again, I really think just he owes it to them to just, they go all in. at least one more time.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something that kind of reminded me of a situation that the Rangers are in. There's certain fans that think like, oh, they could really use a defenseman, that being the Penguins. But I've heard similar chatter. Jacob Chikrin's name comes up every now and then as it pertains to the Rangers. And I mean, I realize he plays on a terrible team, but he's like a -26 this season. And again, I know that's a flawed stat as well, but it's not like he's exactly setting the world on fire. He's under contract for, I think, like $4.5 million for the next 3 years, and the Rangers are going to be a little tighter against the cap, after doing all these extensions this offseason. But I'm with you, man. I think, what the Rangers need, and it looks like the Penguins are in a similar situation too. You mentioned Kasperi Kapanen has been struggling. Just a depth forward, maybe somebody that can play like on the second line, third line, something like that. And for the Rangers, particularly a right winger. I don't know why I feel this way, Hunter, but I have and the Penguins better than I do, but I just have this gut feeling that JT Miller, because I would be interested in a reunion, if the price is right. I feel like he's going to end up on the Penguins. And I don't know why I feel that way. Do you see a fit there at all?
It does make sense.
Yeah.
Don't forget the fact that he is a Pittsburgh kid. So, he's kind of playing for, I guess, his hometown team in a way. They can put him on Malkin's, right wing. And, I know I'm pretty sure that's his offside, right? Right, John? Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know that would maybe be a little weird, but, Hyman's been really killing it on Gino's left side. So it's that right side that they really need to fill. I'm not sure if Kapanen's even going to be on the team after the deadline. He's just been that bad this year. It's just, that I think has actually trumped the need for a backup goaltender for a while. A lot of us were like, okay, just go get a backup. Kapanen's going to turn around. That hasn't happened. And, to your point about Chikrin, I know I also don't look a lot at plus minus. I think it's usually a useless stat. But -26, it is pretty bad. But, again, I will say Arizona is, I think, up there with Montreal with probably the worst team in hockey. So I feel like if he does get out of there, that plus minus will go straighten up. And I think his numbers overall will really just rebound. He's probably the best defenseman on the market. Whoever gets him is going to really strengthen their defense, of course. Because I think, watching New York today, and I was like, I love Fox. Lindgren's not bad too. I like what Keandre Miller does, but I do think maybe they need another guy back there that can help move the puck in a way.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Braden Schneider got called up not too long ago, and he's played very well. He's played about 12 or 13 games at this point, I think. When Patrick Nemeth has been in the lineup, and all the best to the Nemeth family, he actually just became a dad, so that's pretty cool. But he's scuffled a little bit this season. The Rangers brought him in to be kind of like, just a decent veteran player, a more experienced defenseman, because they're obviously very young on the blue line, and somebody that can kind of just hold it down on the third pairing. I do think at times Ranger fans have been a little tough on him, but I mean, I got to be fair here. He has not played all that well this season. So maybe Zach Jones, who played today, maybe he's the answer. He was a former third-round pick by the Rangers. So they got a lot of different ways they can go. But again, if I'm going to prioritize something at the deadline, it's definitely right wing over defenseman. But there is something else I got to ask you about, Hunter, and this is getting to be old news at this point. But the whole Brad Marchand, Tristan Jarry thing, I mean, Ranger fans and Penguin fans, we got a common enemy here, because believe me, we don't like him either. He had that whole incident with Panarin earlier this season, and just generally how he carries himself out there. But I mean, what was your takeaway watching that? It was just ridiculous.
He's a troll. That's what he is. He literally is just. He likes to screw with people. I was going to say another word. I'm not going to drop the F-bomb on this podcast, but I think you know where I'm going with that. That's what he likes to do with people. And, a lot of times it works. A lot of times it also doesn't work. And, it was Bush League stuff. You're going after a goalie just because you're mad your team lost. There's no excuse for that crap. I think the suspension should have been for more. I saw some weird Bruins fans defending it. I'm not really surprised because, that's their guy. And I know how talented Brad Marchand is. Don't get me wrong. He's a top 10, a top 15 player in the league. But you can't keep doing that kind of stuff. You're costing your team. Bruce Cassidy even said after the game at the time, that's just his emotions got to the best of him. And, he screwed our team there, and he can't keep doing that. And he's going to learn this lesson. He didn't even defend the action at all. So I'm sure it's not going to be the last incident Brad happens with him. That's it. I'm sure it's not going to be the last incident that he's involved in. Excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
But it was Bush League crap, and he got what he deserved.
Fair enough. Pretty much my sentiments exactly. It's funny because I actually had a listener ask me to comment about that because, Marchand and the Rangers have been mixing it up over these past couple of years. But I pretty much said what you did. I was just like, I mean, what do you even expect at this point? It is what it is. But yeah, Hunter, listen, man, this is a ton of fun, as it always is. Always good getting together for these crossover episodes, and got a couple more matchups in the regular season, maybe even the playoffs as well. And as long as you're up for it, man, I'll do some pre-games, I'll do some post-games, whatever you're up for.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, we'll keep knocking these out, and I think right now with how Carolina's going and with how Washington's receding, these two teams I think will play in the first round. It's just a matter of who gets home ice.
Yeah, I'm with you. So Ranger fans, Penguin fans, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.